Welcome to the Scoreboard. My name is Andy Boyan from Chainlink Labs. This is presented by Augur and Chainlink, where we look at NFL football data and prediction markets on Augur to compare the sports data supplied via the Chainlink network and the market sentiment and predictions on Augur. So this is a football show. I say that every week, but just as a heads up, in case you're here for Chainlink only content, this is about football. Why are we on the Chainlink YouTube? Well, sports data delivered via the Chainlink network, Oracle Network, is used by Augur to settle their permissionless, no-limit prediction markets. So for this show, it's me, Andy Boyan from Chainlink Labs, and Chwy from Augur, taking a look at what the markets are telling us about the matches for this week and talking football data to give you a heads up on why the markets may be acting the way they do. Chwy, how you doing, man?
Doing good.
Do okay last week? I was taking a look and it looked like it might have been a little rougher week, but I'm not sure how you were weighted.
Yeah, no, 7-5, but still hit on my two big guys.
Yeah, you're solid there. Well, let's take a look at last week, week 2 in the NFL. We'll get some quick takes. So the big story is the Chiefs, one of the Super Bowl favorites, lose to the Baltimore Ravens, a high-scoring shootout game. Both teams looked like really unstoppable. Like I watched for a little while, and it was just score for a little while there in the second quarter. But the Ravens squeaked it out at home by 1. And I was looking at the data here. Lamar Jackson, the quarterback for the Ravens, had an extra interception, one more than Mahomes. And Mahomes' interception was totally out of character. It was like a weird interception. Like I don't know what was going on there. Did you see that, or did you hear anybody talking about that?
Yeah, I saw it. It was just terrible. Like, no business throwing that ball.
That's like a college freshman. What are you doing, man? Come on. And so that was really surprising. But other than that, it seemed like both offenses were really high-powered and unstoppable. It was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah. KC's been clicking on all cylinders for the most part. They're averaging, I think, 34, 35 points a game and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, pretty solid. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, CEH, big costly fumble at the end of that game. Give that game away.
Yeah, man. Well, that's that home field advantage you like to talk about, and that's that 1 point, right? That's what it does. Those are the numbers. Another game, the Saints came off a huge win in week 1. They were favored by 3.5 at Carolina, and they lose big with 2 interceptions from Jameis Winston, their quarterback. And all the markets were betting on Carolina for this one, so the markets were right, man.
Yeah, all is right in the world again. Winston's throwing picks like usual, no touchdowns, and Aaron Rodgers wins again. So
things are coming back to the way maybe the market expects. The wisdom of the crowd succeeds in this case. We'll see. I like this story of the Saints just going forward and just watching how Winston develops. I have no tie to him or the Saints or whatever. I just think it's fun. So I'll keep tracking that. Detroit at Green Bay on Monday Night Football. Green Bay was favored by 11.5. The early money was on Detroit to cover the spread, and you really liked the over on this one. I watched this game Monday night, like most of this whole game. I watched actually Manning Night Football. Did you watch the Mannings talking Monday?
I did. Pretty funny, actually.
I thought it was really, really good. Honestly, like I learned more about football and like nuts and bolts and X's and O's watching that than maybe I ever have, like in years of, watching college football and playing Madden and NCAA and stuff.
Yeah. I like Eli calling out Peyton when he's wrong.
But it was also cool, like watching them kind of call the defenses and just see like, oh, here's what happens. And of course, Peyton did call it right, and Eli both called it right one time near the end. They're like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Detroit? Don't do that coverage. And then Aaron Rodgers throws a perfect pass, nails the guy, and they're like, see, I told you. It was pretty cool. See. Well, Green Bay wins by 18, beating the spread, and the total score was 52. So the over 1. Sounds like you had some good data there, Chwy.
Yes.
I've got some friends going to the Detroit game this weekend. They're planning on bringing paper bags and jerseys for the opposing team. The New York Giants, Saquon Barkley, isn't impactful against Washington, as you predicted. But the New York Giants did beat the 3.5 spread. So the markets like those odds. We're betting on the Giants. So not a win, but beat the spread there. Some progress.
Yeah, on a positive note, though, Saquon played 84% of the snaps, which was a big improvement. Now he's on a long week, coming off that short week. He should be rested more. We should be looking for him to actually have a bounce back week, his first good week, in my opinion.
Cool. We'll take a look at that game because that could be a real impact player. Great for fantasy as well. Potential. If you've got him on your bench, might be time to bring him off. The Las Vegas Raiders at Pittsburgh. The Steelers were favored at 5.5. Raiders with an outright win. What were your takes here, Chewy?
They're playing well. I mean, Derek Carr is legit. He just never had respect his whole career, and that team is pretty much firing on all cylinders, minus the running back game right now. They got to get Josh Jacobs healthy.
So I was watching a few games. The Raiders defense looked the most aggro out of any of the teams. They were just fierce. They were fast. They were to the ball. There was like every position was at the ball for a lot of plays, and they stopped at Pittsburgh a lot. So I was pretty impressed by that.
Yep.
Houston at Cleveland. The Browns were favored by 12.5 and won by 10.
Yeah.
The wisdom of the crowd liked Houston for that, beating the spread. But you saw Cleveland is beating that. You couldn't cover the 12.5 for your call there. But hey, man, the markets. That's what prediction markets do, right?
Yeah, I expected Chubb to have a much bigger impact than he did. Only touching the ball 11 rushing attempts kind of hurt it. I thought he could have ran all over them a little bit more, but Houston played well. Yeah,
so that's a couple of times a loss, but playing well. They're there to wreck everyone's situation. The upset pick of last week was the Philadelphia Eagles over the San Francisco 49ers. The crowd took the 49ers, and the crowd was right, Chewy.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. Defensively, they played better than expected. They pretty much shut down Jalen Hurts. He just, he never got going. They never got going with Devontae Smith. 7 targets, only 2 receptions, 16 yards.
Another big pick from you last week. You were looking at the data for the Titans and Seattle, and you said that the total score, just based on teams' past performance, was going to be over 53.5. The over did win with a final score of 63. High scoring game, but the Titans, come to Seattle and pull out a win.
Yeah, that was my favorite. That was my favorite bet of the day. The over on that. First week, Titans looked absolutely terrible. They did improve. They got Derrick Henry going in the second half. I think he rushed for 147 yards in that half, 3 touchdowns. It all starts with him and their offensive line. You get him going, it opens up the passing game, and you saw what Julio can do. They actually should have had an even better game with, they had a couple drops in that game.
And what's going on with Seattle? It's supposed to be a home game, home turf, 12th man, all that just didn't end up helping as much as they'd hoped.
Yeah, I mean, their defense is not what it was years ago. So
Busto's pick last week was the Vikings at the Cardinals. He was hoping to see Kirk Cousins bring his Vikings back to glory over the Cardinals, but the Cardinals were pretty hot. Minnesota improved their performance there, but they didn't pull out the win. Although I was looking at the QB ratings, and Kirk Cousins did have one of the highest QB ratings of the week. So he played really well. They just couldn't pull out a win.
Yeah. Historically, at least the past couple of years, Cousins has actually had a pretty high QBR. They're getting their third receiver involved, which he's never really done in the past. Delvin Cook got banged up, which kind of hurt a little bit because he's a stud.
Their division isn't super strong. Detroit and Chicago and Green Bay is, who knows what Green Bay is. So, Minnesota's got all the time in the world to kind of come back and kind of get the pieces together and make a play for whatever it is. We're only a couple of weeks in there. So playing well, just can't pull out a couple of wins. We'll see. The last game we talked about last week was Alabama at Florida, and the spread was Alabama at 13.5. I thought that was totally crazy, and I was absolutely right. Bama did win, but Florida covered and only lost by 2 points at home. Alabama's a great team, but Florida is a good team too. Like, just because it's Alabama doesn't mean they're going to win every game by 20 points. And I think that game will actually have a lot of implications for upcoming week's games as well. That's a pattern we're seeing in college. Here's a cool fact. I looked at the data for this one. The over-under was 60 points, and the total final score was 60 points.
Oh, push.
Man, just nailed it. Right on the money there. What happens with the push? Do all bets just get refunded?
Yes.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
See,
Uh,
I'm learning.
Florida was playing with their backup quarterback, and funny thing was, Alabama has covered 14 points or more going back a ways now. So, yeah, a little bit of a shocker there, but Florida at home, tough place to play.
Yeah, it's got to be a tough place to play. Augur used Chainlink sports data to settle the prediction markets. And coming up, we've got a new set of games, markets, and odds to look at. So next, Chewy, let's take a look at week 3's games and any big stories. First, just what are the markets showing interest in? What's kind of got your eye?
Tonight's game, Carolina-Houston. Houston's favored by 8.5. And Carolina's favored by 8.5, and the money's on Houston. Houston's playing; they just lost their quarterback. Don't know if this rookie is going to be really a big downgrade from Tyrod Taylor. I think it is. I actually think Houston will cover the spread, but we'll see. Next big one is
just the past couple weeks, Houston has not won, but has performed better than expected.
Yeah.
So I think people are just kind of getting on the Houston train. At least they'll keep it close. At least they're trying. Who knows? Maybe this time it's they've had too many losses and they start to get down. But playing well, that's a lot of motivation.
Yeah. Next big one's Arizona versus Jacksonville. Line on that game 7.5. Arizona's favored,
and that's at Jacksonville.
Yeah, this is probably my big bet of the week. I'm taking Arizona all the way. That offense right now is just unstoppable, and Jacksonville has one of the worst offenses in the league. I just can't see them keeping up. I see Arizona winning by 2 touchdowns or more in this one.
A team that can score versus a team that can't. Even that east to west, because or west to east, you talk about that a lot, or you did once, and I bring it up a lot. They're going East Coast, but you just can't beat the sheer talent differential.
Yeah, too many weapons on that team.
Cool. What else you got?
Washington at Buffalo. Buffalo's favored by 7.5. 76% of the bets are on Washington to cover. This is kind of a tricky one. I mean, I'm staying away from this game. Washington's, both defenses really, really tough. But I guess the bookmakers want you to think Buffalo could cover.
So Buffalo week 1, heavily favored, but couldn't pull it off. Week 2, they certainly reset, and they were a scoring machine for a little while. So who is this team? That's kind of what I, the odds are saying. Like, I don't know, who is this team? They could score 2 touchdowns over, or maybe they flounder a little bit.
Losing to Pittsburgh at home and then winning 35-0 to Miami. Yeah.
Who are you?
Yep.
Who am I, Zoolander? They look into the mirror and ask themselves. Interesting game. And you said, you're not sure on this one, but so that's an interesting one to detect a pattern next week. We'll kind of see how that one comes out. One of the other big games I saw is Tampa Bay at LA Rams, kind of 2 of the high performing teams right now. Any thoughts about this game?
Yeah, Tampa's favored by 1.5. 66% of the bets are on the Rams. Right now, Antonio Brown's out with COVID. He might be back in time, might not. I'm probably going to lean towards the Rams slightly on this. Go with the wisdom of the crowd here with the 66%.
Rams playing well. Tampa Bay's playing well too, but it's early in the season. Sometimes Tom Brady takes a little while to warm up, but it hasn't seemed like he needs that lately. I don't know. This might just be a great game to watch, honestly.
9 touchdowns first 2 weeks. He's hot already. Mike Evans a little banged up, but you get pressure, you get right up in Brady's face, you can throw him off, and I think we see that this week.
Another game I earmarked was Green Bay at San Francisco. Any thoughts on this? Mostly the Aaron Rodgers story is really interesting to me. He comes out and plays the worst game of his life in week 1, comes back and plays like an angel came down and like Aaron Rodgers, blessed by the heavens in week 2. Again, who is this guy? I'm really curious how that plays out.
Yeah, I'm just not a full believer that Green Bay is back yet. Their defense is hurting terribly. This is going to be San Fran's first home game of the season. And, I'm actually leaning San Fran. The line's 4. I'm not taking it, or 4.5. I'm not taking it versus the spread. I'm taking San Fran in the money line on this one. I think they win outright.
Green Bay last week comes back and plays well against Detroit, who they're They're okay. I think Detroit's better than Build, but it was just a ton of mistakes. And it was just, by the time you get to the second half, it was mistake, mistake, mistake. And Green Bay just didn't make those mistakes. That doesn't mean Green Bay's a great team. Maybe it was just against a really bad opponent. They looked like one. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the game that you have to get right with. Lions defense, I think, is ranked 28th in the league. So
it was sad and continues to be sad. Any other sort of interesting picks or lines that you notice the markets are making? Any overs or unders that like people are leaning towards that you've got an eye
on? Let's see. Big one is Baltimore, Detroit. 80% is on the over at 50.5.
50.5. That seems like a lot.
I mean, Baltimore's D is still a little banged up. I don't see Detroit stopping Baltimore at all. So I'm probably going with the over on this one a little bit.
I can see Baltimore scoring a lot. I can see Detroit scoring in the first half. So given that, all right, maybe we get a 38-20 game, something like that, and you beat 50.5. Okay, I could see that. I'm with you. I had to think through it a little bit with the crowd.
New Orleans, New England. At New England, line on this one's 42.5. Crowd is favoring the over at 65%. I'm actually going to take the under on this one too.
We haven't talked much about New England, although they're playing well. Tell me a little bit about them. I just don't know them as a team very well.
There's not much to talk about right now. They're a pretty boring team. Mac Jones.
So I was right. Oh, okay, good. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, defense played great versus the Jets. 4 interceptions last week, but
it's the Jets.
Kind of what you expect to do versus the Jets. Took the Patriots in fantasy last week. Took them in one of my survivor pools. New Orleans struggled to put up points last week. New England's trying to run the ball, so I'm going with the under on this one.
All right, cool. Maybe a boring game, which can the data may support so far. We'll see. That's a really interesting pick. We'll keep an eye on. Well, I've got a couple of college picks to look up for since I made this Bama call last time and I thought the data supported that and that worked out. I looked at a couple more games that I think are really interesting. Did you look at college at all or are you still leaving that to me?
I did look a little bit. I mean, my boys have Michigan this week. We'll see what happens.
So that's one that I actually pulled out to keep an eye on because Rutgers is 3-0, not against good opponents. And Rutgers is historically not great at football, like in the past, 20 years. Or more, I don't know. but they're playing at Michigan. And right now I checked the line this morning and it was at 20.5 points. Michigan to win by 20.5, which is huge. And they could absolutely run the score up in the big house. Fans are excited. They're back. It's a Big Ten game, so it counts towards the championship that Michigan's ever seeking. But that said, Michigan can be slow. And Rutgers, they've performed well and have had some decent games. And so confidence could be up. So I think that is one where you could do some balancing for Rutgers to close that and make it a closer game than people think.
So normally I would agree. My head tells me to take Michigan in this one. Rutgers just lost 2 of their cornerbacks. They've been suspended. But historically, Rutgers is, at least this year, they're 3-0 versus the spread. Michigan is 0-5 versus Big Ten opponents versus the spread in their last 5 games. My heart tells me to go with Rutgers. A little biased there, but head tells me to go with Michigan on this one.
I've been to a game in the big house and it's pretty loud.
There's nothing like it. It's awesome.
If you've got a couple of backup cornerbacks dealing with that environment, I think it's going to be hard. It's pretty intimidating. It's pretty scary. But it is a lot of fun. I'll tell you that. So that's an interesting game to keep out for. The other one I saw is Texas A&M at Arkansas, and Texas A&M is favored, but Arkansas has been scoring a ton of points and just demolishing opponents. And so I think this might be a case where we don't know how good Arkansas is yet. Texas A&M is a top 10 team, and Arkansas is, I don't know, in the top 15, something like that. And it's at Arkansas. It's an SEC game. That's going to be real loud. So I could easily see, Arkansas surprising Texas A&M and beating there. That's worth a closer look. But I don't know about injuries on that one. Do you know injury reports there?
No, I haven't looked at injury reports yet. I did see the line was 48.5 on that. I'm not a full believer in Arkansas yet. I don't really think they've played anybody worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
A&M's defense is full of studs, in my opinion. And I think Arkansas actually has a pretty decent defense, too. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw the under hit in this one.
Man, I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking over. I was thinking a lot of points there. So I guess we'll see. This will be a little comparison. We'll see how the data shakes out. And next week, my last one is to watch Tennessee at Florida. Florida is favored by quite a bit. But the old Bama curse, the week after you play Bama, you're usually pretty banged up. And even if there's not a big injury reserve, the amount of force that Bama just like runs you down, because that's what happened. Michigan State beat Miami last week because Miami played Alabama 2 weeks before and just got so hammered. It really slows you down and it makes opponents flinch. And so that could be a place for Tennessee to beat 18.5 at least, or I don't know about an upset. Tennessee's not that good. But there's a really interesting sort of setup there.
Yeah, I mean, you play Alabama to 2 points. You pretty much, this could be a letdown game. No follow through, kind of with what you were just talking about. I would probably lean Tennessee. I wasn't sure what the latest line on that was. Yeah, it looks like 18. So, yeah, I'm probably going to lean Tennessee in this one. Again, it's a game I'm staying away from.
I don't remember, so I'm going to look right now because, hey, we got time. I'm going to look at Tennessee's schedule for this year so far and their scores really quick. They played Bowling Green and thumped them. That's a FCS team. They lost at Pittsburgh by a touchdown, it looks like. And Pittsburgh, I don't know what they're like. They can be good. And they thumped Tennessee Tech. It doesn't really tell us anything about Tennessee right now. So to be honest, the data doesn't tell us that much at this point. We need to collect more data. There's the social scientist in me. Collect more data, go down to Florida and tell us how you really are, Tennessee. But an interesting one to watch at the latest. Maybe I just follow the wisdom of the crowd there. Do you have a line on that one by chance?
Yeah, it looks like 69% is on Tennessee right now.
Okay, all right. So I was thinking along with those lines, and that's a hefty margin. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else popping out to you today? I think that's all I got, Chewy.
Let's see. Only other game that I might be looking at later is Seattle, Minnesota. The line's 55.5. 73% is on the over, and I might be leaning over again on that one. Just not a big buyer of either defense.
Kirk Cousins playing really well. Russell Wilson playing incredibly well. And that was at Minnesota. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yep, at Minnesota.
That's a really interesting one to keep an eye on as well. I'm going to try and catch Monday Night Manning again and learn more football. It was a fun one. That's the scoreboard for this week. This is absolutely not financial advice. It's a look at how football and Augur and Chainlink make on-chain games possible.